on time. I'd right at 11:20. My name is Steven. I'm a senior at Cinema Academy, and I'll give a quick introduction of the flow for today. I'll be starting with a quick exercise, which I'll explain more later. And then I'll be going into a little bit about what I've done, classes I've taken, things that I've done. And then I'll be going into a little bit about my thesis on what is a global citizen. And then after that, I'll be talking a little bit about what I've learned and why I think it's really important. And then towards the end, I'll be doing a slightly personal reflection on how has this travel changed who I am and impacted my life. So to be started with, if I can ask everyone to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and we're gonna go through a person's day, and imagine it's 5 o'clock. The sun is not up yet, but you have to get up because you got a long day ahead of you. You're half asleep, you try to keep your eyes open, you just stay awake. And you slowly but quietly crawl out of your bed. You're stifling a sneeze caused by the cold air and the cold concrete floor because you don't want to wake up your spouse, who's also got a really long day ahead of him. Then you drag your tired body outside into the open, into the cold air, and because your thin layer of clothes couldn't even keep any warm, but this is all the clothes you have. So you quickly drag your tired body across the courtyard into the kitchen hut. But your flip-flop is half broken, and you keep stumbling on the rocks. You finally make your way into the kitchen, and you found your flashlight because there's no electricity, and the sun is still not up yet, and it's pitch black. But the flashlight is not really working, and the dim light provides really little clarity in the pitch black. And now you need to start the fire, but you don't have a gas stove, you have charcoals. So you finally pulled out that giant bags of charcoals, and you put enough charcoals in the stove, but your hands are not dirty, covered in the black chark. And then you have to drag your tired body back out into the openness because there's no running water. And you have to go all the way back into the courtyard to just pour some water from the giant water barrel you have. And because it's so cold, the water is freezing, and you drop the soap onto the dirt. But there's no time to pick that up because it's time to start the charcoal, and it's going to take a while for it to burn, so you're going to be ready for the morning tea. And it's still so dark, and you need to feel for the lighter in the cabinet to light the charcoal. And finally you started the fire, the charcoal is burning, but it's also time to wake the kids up. They want to sleep more, they're tired, but you need their help with all the animals. You need them to help you milk the cow, you need to help them let the goats out, collect all the eggs. The charcoal is finally burning red, and you got to put the handleless aluminum pot onto the stove to boil some water, because that's the only safe water to drink. You scoop some water from the water barrel and pour it into the pot. And now the children is asking for your help. They can't find the only pair of shoes they own, and they can't go to school unless they wear shoes. So you look around the house and found them beneath their bed or the couch they slept on. The water is now finally boiling, and you have to pour it into a thermos to keep it warm. But there's no handle on the pot, and the floor is uneven. So you have to place the thermos on the uneven floor and grab the pot with some old newspapers. The thermos wobbles around as you carefully pour the hot water into the thermos. Now 3 hours has passed, and you have started the charcoal, boiled the water, and you send your kids off to school, and not much else. But there's no time to rest. Even though you're exhausted, you're really tired, and you're still hungry because you haven't been able to eat breakfast yet. But there's no time because your spouse is about to wake up, you got to bring him his clothes, you got to make the porridge for your breakfast. And soon your spouse is going to head off to the farm for a really long, hard working day ahead of him. But you still don't have time to rest. You need to clean the house with a broken broom. And you have to go to the market to get the food for dinner tonight because you don't have a fridge. And you have to get the food every single day. With your broken flip-flops, of course. And you finally make it back from the market, and now you have to make lunch. Light up the charcoal again. And then you have to, lunch is made, but you don't have time to eat because you have to deliver the lunch to your spouse who's working really hard at the farm and who's about an hour away. With your broken flip-flop, of course. And now you're finally back from the farm. It's about 3 p.m. You're tired, but there's no time because you got filled up the water drum, so you have enough water for the next day and tonight. And you also have to wash clothes, do all the dishes from the night before, of course by hand. And then finally your kids are home. You can use a little bit of help. But it's also time to start the shower water because you only have 2 stoves and you use charcoal. It takes forever to even heat up the water. And then finally everyone's showered, you have to start cooking dinner, again with the slow charcoal. And then it's already nighttime and you're finally able to sit down and eat dinner with the family. And then now you have to put all the food away so that no critters would come in the night. And then just at the turn of your head, it's 11 o'clock in the night. You don't know what you have done, but you're exhausted, and you drag your body slowly back into your bed, and ready to start it all over again the next day. And this is a day in life, in Mama Mena's life, my first host family in Tanzania. And this is how she lived her life, day after day, weeks after weeks, months after months, and year after year. Now, if you want to gather your thoughts for a second, And again, my name is Steven, and I'm a senior at Citizenship Academy, and for the past 3 years, I've been exploring the concept of global citizenship and learning what it does mean to be a global citizen. And with that in mind, I traveled to Tanzania my freshman year. With Global Routes, it's 5-week summer trip. Funny story, I was actually scheduled to go to Nepal, but the terrible earthquake shook Nepal in the summer, and then our program changed to Tanzania, which I didn't know later on in a way forever shaped my life. It's also my first time really traveled. And then sophomore year, I traveled to Kenya, in a town called Regu, which is outside the capital city, Nairobi, one of the busiest cities in Africa, and I worked at a school called CHI Academy, which is sponsored by one of a Sabasco-based nonprofit. And this summer I had the honor of joining 9 other fellow dragons on a trip to Madagascar, a really magical island. And I was born and raised in Nanjing, China. I spent my childhood and a little bit of my teenage year in the urban China. My parents divorced when I was 5, so I really spent a lot of time traveling between my mom's, dad's, and grandparents' house. And at Tanzania, I lived in the town of Selila, which this is a picture behind Mama Mena's house. It's a very secluded town in the Arusha region, and next to the mountain Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa. And during the 3 weeks of homestay, I had the honor of staying with Mama Mena and Papa Mena's family. And this is the family portrait. Notice the flip-flops in work. And every morning we would wake up at about 7:30 and make our trip to our work site, which is a local secondary school. You can see kind of the secondary school all the way on the hill. This is about when we're about a quarter of the way done with our walk. It's about an hour walk to the school in early morning and an hour walk back. And this is another view from the school to the village. You can tell it's really kind of isolated village. And this is the famous mountain of Bulu. And this is a picture of our group. One of our projects is painting a map. It's a vision that Global Routes had, is that every school should have a world map, and this is one of our projects. Another project is the improvement of the kitchen. This is an old kitchen. You can tell it's really unsanitized, doesn't even really have a door. And this is a new kitchen we built, real bricks. And this is a picture of the kitchen process. And then this is a picture of the group at the kitchen. And then the sophomore year, I traveled to Reru, just outside Nairobi. This is a picture of the Nairobi skyscraper, one of the busiest cities in Africa. And it's also the capital, the headquarters for the United Nations, a lot of NGOs of its Africa sector. I had the opportunity of working at CHI Academy, again, a school sponsored by a sabbatical nonprofit. Working with kids, being a tutor, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. And during my downtime, I had the opportunity of exploring Nairobi, seeing what's it like of urbanization and its opportunities and difficulties it brought to locals. And also I had the opportunity of spending some time in the libraries of a local university called Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, kind of getting an insight of the higher education system in Africa. And then this summer at Madagascar, this island that's usually really known by its mighty baobab trees for the film and nothing else. In fact, if you look at Madagascar on Google, almost all the pictures and everything you've seen is about the movie. But in fact, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. Every 3 out of 5 people in Madagascar live with less than $1.90 a day. And it's an island about the size of California, and its population is about 5 million. So, which means about 3 million people is below the poverty line that's defined by the United Nations. And during the 6 weeks, I definitely got a chance to track in the breathtaking canyons, got a chance to really chase lemurs, and also marching down the Baobab at the Baobab Festival, see the mighty baobabs. But I also get a lot of chance to really rugged travel like locals would do, and a lot of time on the roads, because roads in Madagascar is notoriously bad. This is actually the best freeway Madagascar has to offer. It's about 2 lane if you really make it 2 lane, but really, when you're driving on these roads, it's really what the real Madagascar life is like. It's really slow, and also on the roads you have a lot of, let's say, very cramped cars or some other methods of transportation sharing the road with taxi cruises who are going at a high speed. And I have the honor of living with 2 host families. This is my host family at an urban city called Morondava. It's next to the Indian Ocean. And then also, this is my host family at Mbantamanga, a really secluded village outside the capital Antananarivo. And during our downtimes, this is a picture of our host family parties. And during the downtimes, we had an opportunity working with a lot of local NGOs, one of them being Zairana, a nonprofit using theater to help street kids, and they always put up a show each year and go on tour within Madagascar. And that's a lot of travel. A lot of hours spent in the airport, terrible food, airplane delays, cramped seats. But that doesn't make me a global citizen. The global citizen is not just someone who goes on those flights and travels, but that's not the point. And I've been to these places, but I think as I came back and sat down to think about my final presentation, I was kind of conflicted on what I'm going to give it on, because I felt that I learned so many different things through the travel, but I was thinking that something that can connect all the years of travel, my international living, and my classroom experience together. And something that I see as one common theme that appears over and over throughout each and every travel, inside each and every classroom, and something that I think that is my thesis of a global citizen. And I think that thesis It's the ability to see through other people's perspective, the ability to resonate with other people. And I'm first to admit that I always have big ambitions when I came back from these abroad trips, really huge ambitions. But every time as plane touches down and every time I think the American life catches up with me, it gets so busy and I kind of forget about it and I kind of let this busy American life consume me. And I'm the first to admit that it's really comfortable. It's what we have is very comfortable and it's very busy and we tend to kind of lose our head because we have everything we ever wanted, the comfortable life, the material we needed, and also in some degrees the spiritual needs. But I think we can always choose. We can always choose to imagine what a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 5 years is like for these children, for their future. And that's the point of my first exercise, is to imagine a day like in someone else's life. And I think when we do that, we will be able to better think from other people's perspective. And thinking from Mama Mena's perspective, who you just kind of briefly lived through her life for a day. If a day, a week, a month, this courtyard is her world, and this giant water drum is the things she knows. And a difficult life as difficult as hers, what would she value about democracy, about liberty, about human rights? Would she value it as much as we do? I don't think so, because for her, she can barely even stay awake to do all the basic tasks. For us, it means 2 seconds. Turn on the stove, put some water from the tap, throw the clothes in the washer. For us, it's the click of the eye, but for her, it means hours after hours of work. And if we put ourselves in her perspective, when this house is her world, then we must to be able to think from her perspective and think about what she really wants, what she really needs, and understand that why she might not value democracy or human rights as much as we do. And working at Otenga Secondary School, I think I saw the struggle of the students. I think coming from the West, that we very often think education is a tool to change lives, and we kind of critique some African students for not working hard enough. And then looking at their textbook, we feel like, oh, it's so easy material, why can't you get it? And then I think it was one morning when I helped serve breakfast at this kitchen that I think I understood. All the students ever get in the morning is one single cup of porridge made from maize and water, because that's all the school can afford as a public education institute. And then I also learned that these students, they stay in dormitories because the school is a boarding school, and that's the only way they could afford a school is going to those public boarding schools. And they stay in a dormitory where 164 students stayed in a single dormitory that's designed for 90 students max. And that itself is days after days, weeks after weeks, months after months, night after night, spending these cramped dormitories. That's both not safe, and you can't possibly rest well. And then I also thought about the average student to faculty ratio, where every 77 students has one single faculty. And that number shows, as I look through the education sector development report, that only 56.7% of the school-age children were in secondary school, which is equivalent as their high school. And that's providing the secondary school is free. But for a lot of kids, like in Mama Mena's life, a children means some help for the already really difficult and challenging life. So, and also sending them to a boarding school means those children are really not going for education alone. They're really living this experience that's horrible, to say at least. And then we think about that only 1.23%. 1.23%. That means when we look at the whole crowd at community meeting, less than 4 people will be going to college. And it's not because they don't work hard. this is a country where 18.3% of the national budget is spent on education. And it's not that they don't work hard, it's not that they don't want to succeed, it's not they don't want to change their life. But how could they, coming from a house like this? And we look at the textbooks and then we say, oh, it's so easy, it's such an easy simplification, multiplication, why couldn't you learn it? But imagine ourselves coming from this house and then spending night after night in that cramped dormitory, not getting enough rest. And then waking up in the morning drinking one single cup of porridge. That's probably also made in an unsanitary environment. And then sitting in classrooms that's broken windows, broken floors, cramped with other students who eagerly want to learn but also eagerly tired. And also with teachers who probably don't have the best credentials in the world. It's not easy anymore to just study. And when we think that way, then we look at NGOs in Kenya, that it's easy for how local people would feel about NGOs than we think. Because for someone who sits on the side of the street in Nairobi, NGOs could just mean another white face in one of these Land Cruisers that could cost as much as $70,000, and wearing a suit that's so expensive that could be as much as this person would make in an entire year. And these Land Cruisers, one of them can improve the sanitation and water access and electricity access for an entire village, but instead they're being bought to transport these highly ranked officials. And how would you feel when you see these people in those fancy cars, fancy suits, and then they're telling you that they're here to help? How would you feel about their work and what they do? And then we also see that how urbanization could mean more than just opportunities. It has lured really young Kenyans into the trap of extreme poverty. Beneath these skyscrapers and the modern shopping malls is one of the biggest slums in the entire world, the Kibera slum, where something over 2.5 million Kenyans lived in these areas, because that's the only housing they could afford coming to this fancy, rich city. And for many of them, it means spending in a unit that's 12 feet by 12 feet. And sometimes there's 8 people sleeping in one single unit, 12 feet by 12 feet. And thinking from these people's perspective, the urbanization, the development, really for them means their dream just got crushed even harder. And there's extreme divide between the wealthy class and the people in extreme poverty. And I think it was at Madagascar that I understand another definition of personal space, which is Malagasy people, children especially, as you can see in this picture, they like to really huddle around you and sometimes really grabbing your hands. And for us coming from the West, we see this as a really rude, uneducated act. And you're invading my personal space, as Kevin would put it, which I do often, sorry. And we feel that they're invading my personal space. What do they know as respect, as my privacy? But we see this as a part of our culture, as a part of natural, that people are supposed to respect each other's privacy. But what if that I tell you that looking at this room, this is your entire house for your entire life, where you and your other 5 siblings and your mother and father share this room together since as long as you can remember. Where for as long as you can remember, you shared everything from clothes, shoes, books, chairs, backpacks, everything you ever owned that you shared with your siblings. And every night, because you never have your own bed, because you only have 2 beds in the house. You either slept on your parents' bed or you slept on your siblings' bed. How would you feel from as long as you can remember that privacy isn't a saying that you know, because you never had one and your parents could never give you one? And then it might not be that crazy that you feel natural to huddle around people, because that's how you show your sense of welcome or you show your sense of respect. And then what if you think about anywhere you go in this country that you're riding these terrible cramped taxi bruises. And even riding these taxi bruises are actually a privilege because most time you can't even afford riding in them. Because you live in a country where 70% people live in extreme poverty. And this is also a country the size of California, and it's 5 million people. And combined with terrible road, you spend a lot of time in those cramped taxi bruises. And what would you feel about personal space? If anywhere you go, look at these pictures, you never get any single space, personal space. In fact, one of our instructors made us to ride one of these public taxi bruises on one of the road trips. And I can tell you that 2 people can't even lay back at the same time. There's not enough room for 2 people's shoulder lay back. You need to either lay sideways or one person has to lean forward while you lay back. And this is not an hour, 2 hour. On a taxi bruise from the inner city in Sierra Bay to one of our first homestay location, Morindava, it's about a 300 miles drive. But for us, it took us 16 hours. From sunrise to sunset, we spent hours after hours after hours in these cramped taxi bruises, where personal space is just never the same. Because as expensive as that ticket was, that's all a family could afford, was to buy these taxi bruises. And then travel for them means a privilege. And there's no space to store any sort of personal bag. You have to put everything on top. And just it rides in those really fancy Mercedes Sprinter vans from the 70s. I just remember looking at the dashboard, there's so many warning lights that was on. They put a duct tape over the entire dashboard. You can't see the warning light anymore. Therefore, it's definitely safe. And those seats aren't original factory seats. They were installed afterwards. In a van that's designed for 12 people, they put 4 rows of seats, 5 seats per row. There's not a walkway to get out. You have to put the seat back down to jump out. And that's how cramped those taxi bruises are. And that's a part of their life. And how could they understand what personal space means? That if you never had space whatsoever in your life, it's not that they're rude or they try to invade your personal space, but for them growing up, what they do means they really respect you and they welcome you. That's why they huddle around you. And then Madagascar is also known for its vast rainforest, as suggested in the film Madagascar. And more than 80% of the plants and animals found on this magical island is only found in Madagascar, such as lemurs. But unfortunately today, only 20% of the original Madagascar rainforest exists. You can tell the rainforest just kind of vanished. And coming from the West, now we see this as an importance to preserve the natural habitat for these animals. And also seeing it as a way to save the future, because we need trees on this island to continue to survive. And we feel that the local people seem to not care, not educated, very ruthless, just taking everything from the nature as long as they can until they run out, and then they don't know what to do. It seems like they don't care about their future. That's what we see when we see people taking down trees and illegal logging them. But the fact is that this is a country where 96% of the households rely on firewood or charcoals for their domestic need. 96%. That's almost every single family uses charcoal to cook dinner, to boil water so they can have sanitized water to drink. And what would you do if you take the charcoal and the wood away from them? This is also a country in extreme poverty, one of the poorest nations in the world, where gasoline and natural gas does not exist, nor does any household have a proper stove to cook. So in a way, that it's not that they're ruthless, that they just want to farm the trees so they can have an easy way out, but rather this is their only source of heat to cook dinner, to make food. And some people see these illegal lodging as really ruthless act and just greedy people wanting to make money. But when a single rosewood bed can sell up to $1 million at Hong Kong's black market, and this is a country where, again, 3 out of 5 people live with less than $1.90 per day. It's not that they're greedy, or they just want to make extra money to be rich, to be wealthy. They just simply want to have the right to live a worthy life, to spend 16 hours of manual labor and make more than just $2 a day. And to buy perhaps a piece of clothing, a pound of meat to share with the entire family for the rest of the week, or buy their children books, pencils to write. And who is here to judge that they don't have a right to a worthy life? Or who is here to judge that they need to save the future, but they have to starve to death today? There shouldn't be a choice between feeding your children today or preserving the environment for them to work tomorrow. And through these travels, I was very frustrated by what I've seen. And I didn't quite understand why we have to make a choice between today and the future when we can't have, why can't we have both of them at the same time? And with these questions, I came back to Sonoma Academy classrooms, taking classes such as African Study, International Relations, Comparative Religions, and also taking a U.S. government class at the San Jose Junior College, learning more about the U.S. role in foreign aid. And I think it's in these classroom discussions that I think I saw more of the exploitation by us in the name of our comfort, material wealth, and our needs. And I think at African Study, I learned the brutal genocide by King Leopold II during his Congo Free State, exploiting Congolese in the name of our industrial revolution for rubbers, and very oftentimes literally cutting off hands from the Congolese who didn't bring back enough rubbers. Of course, the rubber is being paid at no money whatsoever. The simple trade was you bring rubber and you get to live, or if you don't bring rubber back, you get to die. And how the West and the Belgian portrayed Leopold as this conqueror, as this great civilizer of Congo, instead of who he is, which is someone at the equivalent of Hitler, of over 10 million Congolese deaths over its 20 years of control, and not because of any religion or philosophies or power, but just simply because of greed. And then I saw the scrutiny between the Central Intelligence Agency and many Western powers and companies in the name of control, in the name of resources, of the murder of a very prominent Congolese politician, Patrice Lumumba, and in support of a dictator named Mobutu, which became one of the most notorious African dictators. And he was supported by multiple US presidents. In fact, he actually had a lunch with President Reagan, and they both announced a very great friendly relationship between the Zaire, which was back then what called the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And this beautiful nation of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, one of the richest in mineral resources, but yet still remain one of the poorest in the country. And it has one of the bloodiest wars since World War II because of the manipulation of power between the West and multiple companies in the name of freedom, but in fact it's really exploiting its natural resources. And then I learned the cold heart from the West during the Ethiopian famine in 1984, where millions died and millions more displaced. And then I learned the cold attitude from the West during the Rwanda genocide, one of the bloodiest genocide of the human history. And then at the San Jose Junior College, I learned how today President Trump is cutting back State Department budget by 30%, which will significantly reduce the number of aids given by the State Department. And the United States today is one of the largest foreign donor and contributor to AIDS, and how just simply cutting a third of it off will mean so many less people will be helped. And how President Trump has left many projects initiated by President Obama, which will bring both U.S. entrepreneurs connecting with African entrepreneurs together, creating both jobs and increased economic growth for both the United States and Africa. But President Trump left those projects out of his budget proposal, which means that once the funds for these projects run dry, they will just eventually shut down. And projects like Power Africa and Feed the Future, those are great initiatives that could open a new chapter on foreign aid, but it was left outside the President Trump's budget proposal. And at this minute, today, in our day of technology, abundance of resources, the same famine is happening over and over. And the same racial ethnic cleansing that happened at Rwanda is happening again. And so it's the same child soldier, the same war that's going on at the DRC is still going on at this moment. And today, Yemenis children are dying not because of natural disasters, but because of human conflict. There's a conflict between the US-backed Saudi force and the Iranian force. And children were born into this, not because of anything they could have done. Starved to death, photos so graphic that I can't even show you today. And yet, look at this. This is from 9 months ago, and its view is less than anything that we have seen. And to quote one of the foreign aid relief agency on this matter, that he thinks this is an absolute shame on humanity, and it is, that at this day of age, with our level of technology, our abundance of resources, that these things are still happening right now across the country. And in part it's because that we refuse to see things through other people's perspective. We think our life is so busy, and we don't really care. And just like in 1987, it took 1 million deaths to even get 7 minutes and 39 seconds of airtime. Not even long enough to watch one single Warrior basketball's highlight. And we are just so busy. We're so busy with our lives. We're so busy with what we do. We feel our life consumed us. And we're only focusing our own narrow interests of what's right and what's good for us. But we can't continue going on this way. These children will one day grow up, and they will become a vital force of our world, and they will be competing with the student graduating from Sonoma Academy today. And they will become a stronger and stronger force in our world, just as we have seen of the rise of China and its people and its force in today's world politics. Our world will get smaller and smaller and more interconnected with our advanced technology. And we want them to be on our side. We don't want them to be working against us, working against our interests, against our belief that every human is free and every human has its natural rights. And if we refuse to think from their perspectives, then they will become a force that will work against us, against our children, against our grandchildren. And if we refuse to think about these people walking on the side of the road, refuse to think from their perspective, thinking how difficult their life is, we refuse to value their lives as much as we do value ours, then they won't value what we value as important. They won't value democracy, freedom, human rights as important as we do. And even if we ignore the future of these children, ignore this beautiful child who tore a piece of his bread to give to a friend who he met on the street, or my host family at Morindava, who is working so hard to put their children through education, or Michael, who is a sponsored children at the CHI Academy in Kenya, where he's trying everything he can to fight against the odds to succeed, or the family of Mama and Men who are working so hard. Even if we ignore all of them, their difficult lives, we ignore the children starving to death right now. And that's a big if. Even if we ignore all of that, we won't get the the world we want. We won't get the world peace we want. We won't get a harmonious world that we dreamed of. The future world, free of conflict, depends on our ability to think from other people's perspective. A child is never born into a scientist or a terrorist. It grows into one. And we have a choice of which one of them this child will become. And extreme poverty and radicalization goes hand in hand. Multiple studies have found that extreme poverty and radicalization has strong link. And in many areas of our world, conflicts, deaths, bombings, blood on the street is something that is a part of their lives, just like our Walmart. And for these people, it comes natural to them that they don't take life as seriously as we do. And they don't value democracy and human rights as much as we do, because for them to be able to live through today is a big deal. And to these people on the side of the road, if all we ever give them is a blinded eye, and if everything in our life is so much pain, so much grief, then why would they ever consider human rights or our lives or what we do as important? Because we never cared for them. And throughout my trips in Madagascar, whenever we make our stops for food or for bathroom, we're always surrounded by street kids, because we're usually the only white face in the area. And these kids will always come up to us and yell a sentence over and over. They would yell bazaar, which means white people in French, and boom boom, which means candy in French. Because that's who we are. That's what they see us. That's what see our tourists as. White people with money who will throw candy out the window. That's all they know us by. And I remember that our instructors telling us to never just throw out candy or give up money, but those that they deserve more than just one single piece of candy tossed out of your car window. I remember our instructor telling us to talk with them using the limited Malagasy that we know. A simple question as, what's your name? Or hello? Or where I come from California? Or nice to meet you, can mean the world to them. You can remind them that you are more than just that white face who throws candy out the window. And you can remind them that, what does it mean to have human rights? What does it mean to come from the West? And when you do that, you can mean so much to them. You can mean the world to them. You can change their worldview on what's right and what's the West. And it doesn't take much. A simple hello, a simple how are you, a simple where I come from can mean the world. And in that way that you can help them understand what you do and who you are. And I think it's more than just the street kids you meet. It could be a lot of people around you. It could be your porters who help you carry the bag. Because of my awesome instructors I had on the trip, it seemed natural for us to talk with our porters, to introduce ourselves, to kind of spoke with them. But it wasn't until the end of our track where we camped next to a group of British youths. And throughout our talks, it turned out that they never look at their porters. They don't even talk to them at all. They don't treat them as someone human, but rather treat them as an object. And an introduction from you, 15 minutes of your life, could mean the world to them. And you can make a difference in a small ways that you can't even imagine. And you don't have to do that every single day, every time you travel. No, just sometimes, once upon a time, take some time out of your busy life to do these little small acts of kindness. And really, you can make a child smile. And I hope that throughout my presentation I have convinced you the importance of sometimes thinking from other people's perspective, especially when you're frustrated by what they do or confused with why they do what they do. And do that no matter how busy your life may be, because I think their lives matters too. And by thinking and value their life, we also value our life at the same time. And I hope you can, let me end this presentation with a personal note on how travel has changed me. At age of 13, I was at the bottom of my class in China. And I wasn't even expected to pass the high school entrance exam in China, and so therefore I wasn't expected to go to high school. And I thought that my life is out to be lonely, without a home, and without any emotions. And I thought the world is very cruel, very brutal, and only about the capitalist money. But I think each time my plane touches down and takes off, every time I travel, every time I put myself in other people's shoes, my world changes. And I think then I start seeing magic and kindness of humanity. And I think this sunset out of the foggy taxi cruiser's window has this magic. And in fact, most things start to have magic. There's magic in my host siblings' open arms, in the perfectly stacked pile of vegetables at the local market, or in the cramped matatu where music was louder than anything I've ever heard. There's magic in the red rock where I sat next to for 3 days doing my vision quest. There's magic even on the drive to school, because there's familiarity in unfamiliar. And I think in turn that I felt my home beneath the mountain of Ulubulu under the arms of Mama Mena. On the train platform of Dulles International Airport where the Madagascar group hugged each other and bid farewell. And under the sky on a ridge overlooking the Lake Wash at Death Valley. And I think I felt my eyes watering and heart moving, hearing Mama Mena through all our conversations, not complaining for a second for her life. Or seeing the laughter on my host sisters, even though there's so much pain in her life. We're learning the young men and women beaten and tortured, or sometimes even murdered, for fighting for their rights. And through these years of travel, I got reminded of the beauty of humanity, the good in people. And like David Michael said, our lives are not our own. We're bound to others, past and present, and by each crime and every kindness births our future. And I think along the way, I found my home, because I'm no longer traveling away from home, but I'm traveling to my next home. And travel far enough, you'll see yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you have to go for lunch, please go. But I do have a couple of thank yous I really want to do. First, Dad and Mom, please stand up. I would like to blind trust in what I do for all the travels I've done. I don't think they ever approved that I was allowed to go to Africa, but anyways. And to my host parents, can you and also all the backup and supports during travels, and also all those those midnight phone calls I sometimes want away. And then definitely to Sonoma Academy, for all the teachers, John's, Durgan specifically, for all the support on my research and believing what I can achieve, and all the support and flexibility, accommodation has given. I would not be standing here giving this presentation today if it wasn't for the education I received at Sonoma Academy. And for that, I'm forever grateful. And to Where There Be Dragons, for an amazing opportunity to travel to Madagascar, and also continued opportunity to work as an alumni ambassador, to stay in touch in this circle of amazing travelers and cross-cultural emergent people. And then to my fellow dragons at Madagascar for their help and support, for pushing me out of my comfort zone. And also to the three instructors, Micah, Roshika, and Sindoni, for providing great insight and background knowledge of what Madagascar is. And this was an experience that really changed my life and changed my perception on travel and really connect everything together. And then to Children's Humanitarian International, the sabbatical-based nonprofit, for organizing an amazing Kenya abroad experience. And then to Global Routes for an amazing first-year opportunity to travel, and especially to the group of fellow travelers who really supported me, as it was my first time ever to travel. And then a special thank you to all the Vision Questioners, Emma, who's here today, and many more who isn't here, and also the Rites of Passage for really providing me this environment to think. And I think for me, this was during that 3 days of solo, that's when I think everything kind of came together and helped me realize the importance in life and recognize the importance of travel. And also to special thanks to University of Richmond, which I'll be attending for the next 4 years. I look forward to a very small classroom and continuing my exploration of majoring in possibly international affairs with a concentration in Africa, learning Kiswahili, the official language spoken in Eastern Africa, and also learning more about marketing. But before that, I'll be taking a gap year, exploring more about development. What does it mean to be happy, to be developed, and also learning more about myself. As I said, travel far enough, you see yourself, and I think I'm not far enough to completely see myself yet. And thank you everyone so much for coming. I'm just going to flip it through. That's it, right? Thank you.